Well, hello everybody. It's Brother Todd with your Victory Minute. I hope you guys and gals out there having a great day. I'll do something a little bit different on this Victory Minute today. I'm gonna kind of walk you around this contraption. I ain't never used it like this, so I don't know if it's gonna work. I'm on the back side of my son's place. We're clearing out a thicket. If I turn this way, you kind of see all that bramble back there behind me. I've been cleaning it out. He got this old John Deere 690 hoe. He puts me to work in the evening on it, which I enjoy. I don't like sitting around. I like to do something with my hands when I can. But I'm gonna walk you down in here a little bit. There's a point I want to make to you. I want to show you something. I was working back in here. This whole area I'm walking in now was just a solid. All that you can kind of see open behind me was just as thick as it could be. All this is going to be a tank. Now, for those of y'all ain't from Texas, that's what a lot of you folks call a pond, and we call them tanks down here. And all this is going to be underwater. It drops off pretty good, and we're going to put 3 or 4 acres at least underwater back here. Well, in doing so, you're clearing out old thickets, you run up on some trees that you hate to lose. My son, if he's not doing something for Jesus, he's either planting a tree or something in a garden. And he was down here, Dad, we can't lose this and can't lose this and can't lose this. And I said, Bubba, this old one I'm walking up on here, I don't know if we'll be able to make anything out on it. I said, Bubba, it's right in the middle of the way and it doesn't look healthy. Now, it's all, the old limbs are broke off of it now, but I did all that with a hoe. It was a big old tree. And it was leafed out, and there wasn't no limbs falling off of it or nothing. It just, it didn't look real good. I didn't like the way the bark looked. Anyhow, you're working with that old hoe, especially. You can't just run up and try to push over one of these old big trees. You gotta be patient, and you gotta work around it. And what you do, you work around looking for the roots. I'm gonna try to get where you can see what was the root ball on this old tree. It's back behind a big old burn. There it is. And I'll get you over here to another, and you get an idea. But the way you take them down is you dig around on the sides. He said, and most time on these big trees, sometimes you got to go around on the back side and dig them. These old oaks, they don't give their ground up. There's a root ball right there. You notice that root ball is bigger than that other one. That tree's half the size of that other. And I'm gonna get up here in the shade. And but when I was first going up to that old tree, I had took down this, and it took a little while. You got to reach around, find the roots. Find the roots. You go to work on one root. You'll get it broke. You dig around. Like I say, sometimes bigger trees, you got to work around all 4 sides. Usually about 3 sides, and you take the old hoe, lift it up real high, and you kind of push. And if you got the roots, it'll start going. If it don't, you back off. Don't break that tree off. You'll be trying to dig a stump out forever. What you do is you get the roots, and then you use the tree against itself. You use it as a leverage point. Use it as a lever against them roots. So tree goes up, you push against them. You say, Brother Todd, why in the world, man, are you telling me this nonsense? Well, I was sitting in this hole the other day, and I thought about how whether it's Satan or the systems, that's how they work against the things that are important to us, to you. Whether it's your country, whether it's your church, whether it's your family. No matter how strong a family is, if you can get to the roots and you can wipe out them roots, you can make it unstable. And then all it takes is a little external pressure that gets it to work against itself. I've seen families come apart, come under pressure, financial strain, death, somebody, a divorce or something, or, just marital problems, and a whole family will fragment, just go to pieces because the roots have been eroded, and they can erode over time or whatever, or they can be attacked. Same thing happened in a country. That's what's happening in America today. We're dealing with our roots, our fundamental convictions. They're breaking and they're getting diseased. In fact, that's the reason I walked down here today. That old big tree, and it's hard to tell it now because really I took the top of it. I ain't over there yet. That old tree, when I laid it down, it was all you could see was branches. I knocked them down with the hoe. We'll take all this bigger wood, make firewood out of it. But that tree, that big tree, I took it down in less than half the times I took down this smaller brother of it right here. And the reason I was able to do that is when I got up to it and I started working them roots, the roots were diseased. They just broke real easy. I've got little trees back here behind me, took longer to dig up, push down than that big tree did. I got around and that old tree was diseased pretty good. So I dug around it on 3 sides. I could tell how bad the roots were, and I figured they were that bad on the other side. So I said, well, I'll just go ahead and start pushing. Normally I wouldn't even have tried on a tree that size. But when I put that hoe up there high, I put that bucket up there on it. No, they're telling me my battery's low. I put that hoe up there, it wouldn't budge. I mean, it didn't. When I push, I don't know much about running equipment, but when I push, I look at them roots. I want to see if they're turning. If they're turning, I know it's giving. I can stay at it. He didn't budge. I thought, well, look at here. There's going to be a good root somewhere. And I drove around that thing, and sorry, this contraption. I drove around it, and I went to working on the back side of it, and sure enough, there was one root did not want to give its ground. That one root was giving that tree everything it needed. It was the reason it was still alive. It was holding. And when I got that root, all it took was just a little pressure. When your core convictions get eroded, and again, anything you hold dear, I don't know what this thing's doing. It's driving me nuts what it's doing. Whether it's your family, core beliefs, core relationships. You know, you think about it in America, I don't know about all over the place, but in Texas, 50 years ago, you just didn't walk up to a judge and say, well, we've got irreconcilable differences. We want a divorce. That didn't happen. You had to walk up that judge. You better bring some reasons. Somebody better be cheating on somebody. Somebody better feel threatened or being hit on or something like that. But just because you two people can't get along, y'all go home and work it out. That's why everybody used to have to go to Nevada or they'd go down to Mexico or whatever to get divorced, because the family there was a much stronger integrity to it. People that lived together were ostracized in society. It was not a normal thing. It was just the core was that relationship, that bond. Of course, America at the time was a very Christianized society, so you realize marriage is a religious thing. Marriage is not a civil thing. For the life of me, I have no idea why the government has any opinion on who gets married to who, and or how many husbands or wives this and has and that. I think, I know what the Bible says, but I don't think it's the government's place. But you're hearing my libertarian side now. But the reality is when there is a commitment in marriage and in family, then they hold. But if you can get the roots, and if you can, and nowadays we live in a world where the definition of families basically just become a group of people live together, care about each other, maybe, and that's it. And there's nothing concrete in it, so it's very easy to separate those people. It takes very little external pressure because there's no real roots. You take like our country right now. I don't blow your mind or nothing here, but the truth is, guys, 100 years ago, if some country had invented some biological weapon in a lab and turned it loose on the world, our granddaddies would have been right now marching through Beijing or marching to it. It's just a reality. We wouldn't have took it. We went into World War I because they sunk a ship, had Americans on it. Remember the Maine was the big battle cry. And they had convictions. You was going to roll up and attack us, and it just be left alone. And we spend 20 years dealing with you like we did with 9/11, and we still got the same problems. It's just there's a problem. The problem is in those roots. and they're being eroded away. And I'm gonna tell you something. It don't matter how big the tree is. There's some big old trees back here. Mason, don't get scared. Them ain't going down. Mason protect a tree, boy. I'm telling you, big time. He come out here and scold me. But it don't matter how big these trees are. You give me a little time with that hoe, and let me get them roots. Let me get them roots. There's a tree I used to love riding my horse up under. The friend of mine had this place. He passed on. Mason bought this place from his kin. And it was a live oak tree, had 8 trunks, all in one big bottom trunk. There were 8 individual trunks, and I mean, they were big around. There's 8 of them, and that old thing died. It got so old, finally just give up the ghost. And when I went to push it down, it had been standing there a while, dead, and the limbs that was falling all off of it. When I went to start, I thought, oh, Lord, I'll be digging on these roots forever. And when I started moving, I accidentally hit the tree with a bucket. And when I did, the tree moved. And I thought, there ain't no way. And I picked that hoe up and I pushed that tree and it fell over. There was no roots left. The only thing holding it was its base. It had the appearance of a connection, but it didn't have any. And I worry about that with America because we're very big, we're very strong, we're very rich. But I'm afraid if our roots go out, it ain't gonna take much to push us over. Same thing happens in church. We've left our core convictions in the American church. We become primarily places where we provide a civic service. A place to have a community get together, get you a bite to eat, somebody's class reunion, weddings, funerals, things like that. But that we left a lot of core convictions, and we just turned into civic organizations, and there's no power. You know, Vance Havner used to say, if this is it, then this ain't that. And he was talking about the old King James translation where they asked Peter and them what was going on. And he said, this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. And old Vance Havner come along. He said, well, if this is it, what we're seeing now, then it sure ain't what was going on then. But what happened? What happened was we leave core convictions. We leave our roots. We leave the gospel. The gospel is an exclusionary thing. Nobody wants to be an exclusionist. But Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me. And so, I embrace being an exclusionist. Why should I not? It's what my master was. He's the only way to life. He's the only way to salvation. He said, well, Brother Todd, a lot of people don't believe that. Well, amen. That's always been the case. But this is what the master's called us to. And if you're a Christian, this is a conviction you have to embrace. You have to hold on to. To come up any other way is a thief and a liar. To embrace any other way is to sell out your master. And even the way I'm talking right now makes some of you Christians nervous. Amen? We don't come to church and talk about convictions very often, not across the board. I mean, again, there's always been a remnant and always will be. We try to be part of the remnant at Victory Church. And there's lots of good churches around. But I think most of y'all understand what I'm talking about. Churches become lightweight. We come together and just talk about things all of us want. We ought to love each other and do well, and everybody wants to be happy. And we spend about 45 minutes on it, go home, we check the box, and we scratched off our conscience is eased. But where are our convictions? I guess you ain't usually so preachy in these things, am I? But where are our convictions? I was sitting right here where I'm standing right now, working on that tree. And I was thinking about how easily this big old oak tree fell. And then I thought of all the churches that I've been in when I was in evangelism and went around, and they wouldn't focus on their convictions. They wouldn't focus on their roots. They were hung up in personality. Some bossy old woman in the church, or some weird old guy, or just everybody just wants to get along and let's all eat some biscuits and gravy and call it a good day. I don't know. I thought about all the families I've seen just absolutely destroyed. Just waiting on a little pressure. Everything looks good. Go to the football game, they all look like they like each other. 2 months later, this one hates that one. This one's talking about that, and on Facebook, I was brought up, you backed family. And even if family was acting stupid, you sure didn't go tell non-bloods anything about it. You built up. You know, we all had, you know, every one of us got problems. We all got family members got issues, but I grew up, you talked about the good in them. You didn't talk about the bad in them. You tried to encourage them. You tried to build them. You tried to help them. Like I say, I grew up hearing the stories of my granddaddy and daddy and them talking about America. My old man, he watches these things. Daddy's on hospice now. Daddy fought there in Vietnam. I grew up being taught about convictions. My son Mason, there was a time there when he was in college, was really thinking about becoming a Marine Corps officer. Mason had some really bad hip injuries, and didn't know if he'd be able to do it. And turned out he wasn't able to. He got the hips of just bad, needs hip replacements, but he's just so young. They had old Marine Corps officer had a bunch of cards. He was asking, they had different words on them: honor, duty, college tuition, all this kind of stuff. He gave them to Mason. He wanted to know, I know what he's doing. He's trying to figure out how to talk to this kid. And Mason picked out the things. And the old Marine Corps officer looked at him, and he pushed the others off to the side. And he said, "Well, it's about time I talked to somebody who wanted to talk about these things: honor, duty, loyalty, love of country, love of people, sacrifice, service." And we're gonna have to get to it, or we're gonna lose it. We're gonna go down easy. We got one or two roots holding us up. So what am I saying? I'm saying if your family, if them roots are diseased, man, get to doing something about it. Get to church. Go find a church wherever you live where somebody's talking more about Jesus than anything else. That's the key. Just look for that. Look for that. Look for that. Preacher's talking about himself, get away from him. Preacher's telling you what he knows, get away from him. They all they do is talk about the money, and if you give them money, God will give you a blessing. Get away from them. I give to the Lord. Lord don't owe me anything. Lord's given me life. I've been created. I've been redeemed. I don't need anything else. Find you a church. Stay at it. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't go to 3 or 4 churches. Well, we couldn't find one. Don't go find one because your kids like what the youth leader does, or they eat candy the whole time, or they just play games. I've heard some kids say sometime about their church, "Oh, I like my youth group. Sometimes we'll get to playing games. We won't even have a lesson." Well, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. That's to get a crowd. That's all that is. Manly Beasley said we count the crowd. No. We see the crowd and we count the money and we think God's moving. Go find you a church. Get to work in your family. Try to rebuild those relationships. You and your mama may have a poisoned relationship. Make sure if it's within your power that you have a strong relationship and strengthen that root. Strengthen that root. As far as our country goes, voting's coming up. I'm not really much for either side a lot, but I'll tell you what, vote convictions. And if I can't find either one of the two that I can stand before God with and say I voted, I don't. Now, I know a lot of people get mad about that. I didn't vote for Obama and I didn't vote for Romney. I didn't vote for neither one of them. I'm not going to vote for a cultist. I'm not going to vote for somebody that's for abortion. And you say, well, Brother Todd, you got to pick one. No, I don't. I'm going to stand before God, give an account for things I've said and done. I'm not going to stand and say I voted for somebody that believed Jesus isn't God. Now, I'm not going to stand and say I voted for somebody that believes abortion is a viable alternative. And I'm sure not voting for anybody that's ain't got enough sense to know there's 2 genders. It's just stupid. Say, well, Brother Todd, you sure waxing heavy today. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I sat there, I'm looking back at a little old opening. I was sitting there working on that tree. I'm telling you, I was working on that tree. And when I got that one good root and that tree fell so easy, I thought, boy, if I was a devil, that's what I'd be after. I'd be after the one good root left. And if you're a Christian and you're trying to live it right and you're part of a remnant, baby, you got to hold your ground. You might be the only root in your family. You might be the only root, be one of those very few roots in our country. You may be in a church where everything is off, but you are really trying to live for Jesus. You know, somebody say, I'm going to leave. Don't leave unless God sends you. You may be the only root left in that. You might be that one praying person that's staying it off, that's holding it off. You don't know. I preached a message on Sunday called Living a Terrific Life in Terrible Times about King Josiah. All them types, him, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the Babylonians called them. They lived faithful and they lived in tough times, and we can. You and I can. We can't give our ground. We can't let nothing claw us up. I thought to myself, boy, if that one root had held out and been stronger than that old hoe, it would have, that old tree would still be standing there. I could have never pushed it over. Now, I drove off thinking about it. I thought, I'm going to come down here and hopefully maybe somewhere out here in the internet land, one or two of y'all's going to get it. And you're going to be a force to be dealt with in your church, in your country, and in your family. Well, didn't mean to be so preachy today, and I know some of the things I said in here probably get me kicked off to YouTube, but that's all right. I've been kicked off a few things. Hope you have a good day. But for real, think about the things I've talked about. Y'all be blessed. May the Lord keep you, hold you. You either get to making yourself a good root, or if you are one, don't you let go, baby. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.